What's going on, everybody? Jeff Holiday here, and today we're going to start kind of a loosey-goosey series. It's going to maybe take a while to do, and I kind of do it when I'm feeling it, because I discovered randomly while I was trying to work on a rather fun video that's going to involve a new character, my Uncle Ted. Hey, how you doing, brothers? And while I was on stream on my Twitch stream, and we're looking into maybe making a video, I randomly dropped into looking kind of into the anti-GMO cult and looked at one of my good old favorite people, Patrick Gentempo. And for those who don't remember, Patrick Gentempo was featured in my bot deconstruction series, and he was featured rather prominently in the movie Bot. So when I went to go look back into him again, I found that this guy has been extremely prolific. You see, Patrick Gentempo also runs Action Potential Holdings, and if you look down the page here, he's got quite a few different projects under this umbrella, one of which is Revealed Films. I wonder what Revealed Films is. Well, let's take a look. So over here at revealedfilms.com, there's good old Patrick Gentempo there. We make movies that make movements, by which he means he makes movies so irritating it makes you want to poop your pants. Our featured docu-series, Vaccines Revealed, GMOs Revealed, Christ Revealed. Finally, someone's just going to tell us the hard-hitting truth about Christ. Addiction Revealed, and also recently, I believe that they're doing a series on depression. And I don't know about you, but I love it when quacks try and tell me how depression not real and eat this kiwi. It's totally going to fix everything. You'll be fine. Anyway, scrolling down a little bit further, we go to our founders, Patrick Gentempo and Jeff Hayes. Jeff Hayes, well, that was the guy that made Bot. And in fact, he's been making a lot of documentaries for a while. The dude seems to be kind of the money man behind this whole weird cabal of people. So thinking on this, I was like, why don't we look at one of these? Let's pick one. We've been talking about vaccines for a while, so why don't we look at GMOs Revealed? So I went over to GMOsRevealed.com, and here we are with GMOsRevealed.com. More than 50% of Americans are testing positive for glyphosate in their urine from Monsanto's Roundup on GMO crops. Are you one of them? Now, this docuseries is really interesting, and how they do these is strange. I've been trying all morning now to wrap my head around what their monetary model is for this, and I can't actually figure it out. What they do is they offer the first episode of this 9-episode-long docuseries for free, and then you just have to register, and then I guess one per day you'll get a temporary link to watch the other ones? But in theory, this is free. In theory. Maybe there's something that I'm missing, but it just seems like a really bizarre way to do it. Why not just release them all on YouTube? At least then you could, ad revenue it. You could. So as I'm looking further down there, what are they not telling us? Register for free documentary access. But this is the thing that I thought was really interesting. If you scroll down, hear from leading experts during this exclusive event. Now, if you've been watching my channel for a while, let's play a quick game and see if we can pick out some familiar faces. Well, Mike Adams, the health ranger, also usually on InfoWars. Okay. David Avocado Wolf. Wow, really bringing your A game here. Mercola, of course. Zen Honeycutt and Kathleen Halal from Moms Across America. The Food Babe. We've got Dr. Ed Groom, Alex Jones' favorite pet monkey on InfoWars. We'll get to this Dr. Zachary Bush here in a second, but Jeffrey Smith, one of the first videos I made way back in the day was pooping all over him because he was challenging Neil deGrasse Tyson to a debate about GMOs. Of course, Patrick Gentempo, and good old Miss Swivelneck Tony Barg. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the very first interview in GMOs Revealed Part 1. I know this is kind of confusing, but there are 9 parts. Each part has 3, maybe 4 interviews. We're going to look at the very first one. This is what they want to sell the whole series on. And the reason why I say this might turn into a series myself is there's just so much dense amounts of dog shit that is in all of this that it would take me forever to debunk all of it. But it's a good source of things to just look into because, my God, there's a serious problem here. You see, the problem is that GMOs Revealed Episode 1 has 312,000 views. Granted, their channel only has 6,000 subscribers. That's a large amount of people that have watched this, and the like to dislike ratio is 3.3 thousand likes to 241 downvotes. That's a problem, because pretty much everything that's said in this is completely goddamn wrong. So, seeing as how this can be widespread misinformation, it is my job to counter it. So, you know what? Buckle in. Let's just get started.
Zach, thanks so much for coming and talking to us. Can you tell us your name and your background? Give us a bio sketch.
My name is Zach Bush. I'm a medical doctor. I trained in allopathic medicine with my MD. I started at the University of Colorado. That journey started with a missions trip that I did to the Philippines. I was going to be an engineer and had the opportunity to go over and work with an international group of midwives over in the Philippines. And they had an extraordinary opportunity for me to really see a whole different side of humanity than I'd ever experienced before. So I was only 19 and went over there and started birthing babies in the squats of the Philippines, and it completely changed my entire worldview. And came back from that realizing that engineering suddenly seemed boring, and there was an opportunity to engage humans on a new level there. And so I decided to go in medicine. I didn't have a real aptitude for...
Okay. Right off the bat, I have problems. So the subject of this very first interview is Zach Bush M.D. Now, his backstory is that he was an engineering student. He went on a mission to the Philippines, and then somehow fell into a weird gang of midwives roving the countryside, birthing babies, I guess, and was like, maybe I should go into medicine. That's a strange story. But when I looked into Zach Bush, it's true. He has an MD. He did go to the University of Colorado. But the problem is that from there he diverged into, well, dog shit. You see, in my investigations of Zach Bush, I found this interesting blog post by Chad Hayes, MD. He's a pediatrician. He decided, as a lark, to go to an integrative medicine conference, which is usually full of a bunch of quacks. And there he got to listen to a lot of weird wingnuts talking about a bunch of weird shit. Well, oddly enough, Dr. Zach Bush M.D. was there. And let's see what he said. In addition to poorly executed science, there were a lot of facts tossed out at the conference that left me wondering if the speakers are being intentionally dishonest or if they were just really, really wrong. Chief among these offenders was Zach Bush M.D., who runs the M Clinic and Intrinsic Health Center in Charlottesville, Virginia, and sells the Restore line of supplements. Don't worry, we'll look at that in a little bit. Bush, who seems to have some difficulty understanding basic concepts of genetics and mathematics, informed the audience that, genetically speaking, humans are pathetically simple. His rationale for this was that humans have 20,000 genes, while fungi have 2 trillion. I'll admit my initial ignorance, although 2 trillion seemed high. I didn't really know how many genes fungi have, but it wasn't hard to look up. Gene sequencing reveals that fungi genomes are similar in size to our own, at about 10,000 to 25,000 genes. But what are 8 orders of magnitude among friends? Actual numbers aside, Bush further argued that if microorganisms were the enemy, we'd be dead, which of course many of our species are, having been unable to overcome infections from a dazzling array of microorganisms. He then told us how amazing it is that the DNA repair enzyme travels near the speed of light. Unfortunately, this is even less true. DNA polymerases, responsible for DNA repair, travel along DNA strands at approximately 10 to 20 nucleotides a second, each of which is approximately 0.6 nanometers in length. Being as generous as I can, that comes out to 12 nanometers a second, and in that same second, a photon of light travels 300 million meters, or, that's a lot, times farther than the DNA repair enzyme. Further revealing his ignorance about genetics, Bush informed us that while scientists call 99% of DNA junk, that simply can't be correct because there's no waste in nature. Bush asserts that what geneticists refer to as junk DNA actually codes for microRNA, small strands of RNA that regulate how our genes are expressed. While microRNA does actually exist and the roles it plays are fascinating, it makes up a relatively small percentage of our genetic code, about 1 to 5%. But then Bush ruined what could have been an interesting talk when he said that microRNA can be transmitted by breathing. He claimed that you can literally go to the gym, do nothing except breathe in the microRNA that others exhale, and benefit because your cells think that they worked out. And in case that wasn't enough of a stretch, he described how consuming microRNA from bored corn grown in a field with tens of thousands of corn plants makes us afraid of diversity and directly contributes to racism and mass shootings. Wow. It's so good because, like, I read this morning. I found it and my jaw dropped. And now just reading it out loud finally for the first time, it just sounds 10 times more goddamn hilarious. Wow. Now, I know we're supposed to be going to this interview and all that, but one last thing. I do want to point out that restoreforlife.com is in fact Zach Bush's website where we can buy such wonderful products like gut brain health. That's good. Magic dirt water. Wow, I need some magic dirt water. Some Restore sinus spray. Fantastic. Great stuff. And you can get some t-shirts. Wow, look at that. Beautiful t-shirts. It's incredible. Okay, so now that we have kind of a baseline of who Zach Bush is, this is a 43-minute long interview. I'm not going to watch the whole thing with you. I already had to suffer through this damn thing live on my Twitch stream. By the way, twitch.tv/RealJeffHoliday if you ever want to watch me make these videos live. So I'll spare you. That little bit. And instead, we're going to look at some very select pieces and really what the problem are. So we're just going to kind of rapidly skip through this, and I think you're going to have some fun.
What got you interested in GMOs?
It was my career, again, if you're willing to deconstruct and believe you know nothing, then the universe will show you what it wants you to know each day. And so my journey into GMOs was really an accident, and or with great purpose. And it turned out that my discoveries around bacteria and their role of communication at the cell level led to the exploration of soil, and how my nutrition clinic was kind of seeing at least 40% of my patients fail with the best food on earth. And to try to start asking, how is this food not delivering the medicinal effects that we expect it to do? And that took me down the journey of what is the soil giving to the plant, what is the plant giving to the human? And then that was this huge, avenue. And one of our chief science advisors is,
oh my God, you're so boring and prattling. Okay, let me try and translate for you. At my clinic, we expected that food was healing, and that we're making sure people are eating very good food rather than, I'm assuming, traditional treatments. And because the food wasn't magically healing the things that we wanted it to, there had to be a problem with the plants. So, GMO. So next up, Zach Bush is giving kind of a history lesson. In fact, most of this interview is like a history lesson as we moved up towards GMOs. Now, I'm just going to kind of snippet this so you can get a feel of what he's trying to say.
And the steps that kind of happened, from my perspective, really started with this machine of the World War II. We were pumping so much petroleum into tanks, ships, planes. We had this massive demand. And World War II ended, and suddenly there was this glut of petroleum. And so the industry needed a new target. And it didn't take long to realize that in petroleum is nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, three of the most critical macronutrients, if you will, for crops. And so it was this sudden shift from let's put it into our tanks and planes, let's start making chemical petroleum-based fertilizers and put that into our soils.
So his weird conspiracy theory is that after we ramped up our petroleum production for World War II, and then World War II ended, and we're like, we got all this oil, what are we going to do with it? They decided, well, we'll just randomly dump it into agriculture?
And instead of really fixing that by going back to composting and all of these things, we instead just started dumping petroleum into our soils. And it led to something that would be termed the Green Revolution. Mm-hmm. Sounds great, the Green Revolution sounds like, well, this must be the best thing that's ever happened to ecology. And it looked like it, because suddenly we took dead crops and failing fields with no productivity to huge fields of green corn and soybean and all the rest growing in an abundance in the 1950s and 60s.
Correct.
So it looked like a boon. But we see this in human health just like we do in plant health. If you use just a couple of nutrients and you steal or remove many of the others from the food chain, you end up with a weak immune system.
Okay. For those who are not in the know, the Green Revolution was heralded largely by a man named Norman Borlaug. Norman Borlaug is probably the man who has saved more human life than anyone else on the planet. Because this man, brilliant scientist, discovered many different new ways of utilizing agriculture to bring crops to blighted areas, not just in the States, as this numbnuts clearly is American-centric, but to all around the world. And he fed massive amounts of people. He changed the mortality rate of the planet with the Green Revolution. Now, are there unintended side effects with monocultures and all sorts of varying different ways in which we're not necessarily farming responsibly now? Sure. But you cannot deny the effect of the Green Revolution. You can't. There are literally billions more people on the planet than there would be without it. Literally billions. That's not hyperbole. That is the truth. Billions with a fucking B. Now, should we modify and evolve our farming techniques now and not necessarily just rely on the older techniques if they are doing some ecological damage? Sure, of course we should. But do you think any of these disingenuous fuckheads from these documentaries are actually going to like detail out the finer points of this? Of course not. Of course not. Because if they did, and they lose your focus and instead can't sell you their pills and supplements and powders and shit. I'm getting heated. Just so we're clear, right now he's getting into the problems with glyphosate, and this is an incredible argument that he makes here. Just listen to this.
Mm-hmm. The terrifying thing about that toxin is that it is water soluble, and nature makes the vast majority of its toxins in the form of lipid or fat soluble toxin. And that's important because those toxins can be sequestered away by mycelium in the soil, by the fungi, or can be sequestered away by your fat cells, so it's not in your bloodstream to be exposed to your brain and other things. So fat-soluble toxins are kind of nature's approach. Water.
So it's better that you instead store toxins inside your fat cells? Also, I'm not a biochemist, so I haven't actually been able to get a good answer on this one way or the other. I don't actually know whether or not nature toxins are predominantly lipid soluble. If there's any biochemists out there, please by all means leave me a comment down below, because I don't actually know, but this sounds pretty shady to me. But let's keep listening. Here it comes.
Soluble toxins, this man-made approach, is very frightening because it goes everywhere. And once you dump this into the environment, it's going to go into the water table. It actually evaporates and goes into our air, ends up in our clouds, rains back on us. So we create this whole ecosystem of toxin.
Okay, but there's a problem with that. It's called dispersal. If this man knew anything about chemistry whatsoever, like I am not a biochemist, but I do understand chemistry, at least on a fundamental level enough that I can easily debunk this. If you're saying that a group of water-soluble toxins are suddenly introduced into like the larger global water biosphere, it's going to dilute. It's going to spread out. You're making it sound like you're going to have glyphosate fucking rain. That's idiotic. That doesn't make any sense at all. Does this dude understand dosage at all? How in the hell do you have a goddamn medical degree? Now, there's a little bit more to this that I wanted to point out in this next clip. Watch as Zach Bush M.D. defeats his own argument. Watch this.
They have seen that everything this touches, whether a plant or a bug, it kills. And the way in which it does that is interesting, that it actually blocks the ability of this enzyme pathway, which is called the shikimate pathway. These enzymes make the ringed aromatic amino acids. So we already took one amino acid kind of out of the equation with glycine, and then by this glycine toxin organophosphate, we block the shikimate pathway, and we suddenly lose the ability to make our ringed aromatic amino acids, which include things like tryptophan. And what they continue to point out from a marketing standpoint is that, well, there is no human target because this enzyme pathway is just in bacteria and plants. And so if we put it there, it kills them. But since humans don't have this enzymatic pathway, the shikimate pathway, there is no target for glyphosate in the human. That's what they've been claiming.
So,
however, if you ask what is that enzyme pathway and what does it do, What it makes are what we call the essential amino acids, i.e. the amino acids the human body can't manufacture. The vast majority of the amino acids in those 26 we can make on our own.
So yeah, what you're saying is that so the amino acids are the basic building blocks, and there's the majority of them that we can make on our own. We can just reconstitute from the foods we're eating, et cetera. However, there's some that we need to receive from our dietary intake, right? And you're saying that glyphosate blocks the pathway to be able to create those, or what actually happens?
Exactly right. So 4 of those essential amino acids, so at least half of them are now taken out of the equation. And so they say, well, this isn't important for humans because it just happens in plants. Well, humans rely on that plant or that bacteria to deliver those essential amino acids that we can't manufacture.
God damn, what an expertly delivered grift. Let's break that one down. So what Dr. Zach Bush is admitting to at this point is that the way glyphosate actually works is it affects the ability for a certain type of enzyme that is not present in humans. It affects an enzyme that is actually not inside of us, the sugar-made pathway. Not human affected. Now he's trying to mushmouth talk to us about like the amino acids that we need in life, etc., etc. And it's true. We have to eat, we have to consume certain types of nutrients, otherwise we don't get certain essential amino acids. We don't get certain essential things that we need for basic human life and existence. That's true. That's 100% true. But he's framing this argument that because glyphosate can harm the ability for certain bacteria and plants to make that means that then we can't get that in our body, which makes no sense because glyphosate, when it works, kills the plant. We're not eating dead plants, you idiot. We're eating live food, which has no disruption due to glyphosate. It doesn't make any sense. Not only does he admit that it doesn't even affect human beings, but then he's saying that it's killing them off, and then somehow that's magically like ripping away our ability to get this thing that we're getting otherwise from something that was killed that we're not eating anyway. What the fuck kind of shit is this? Who argues this kind of thing except somebody who is intentionally and quite expertly, I might say, kudos to you, deliberately trying to confuse and mislead gullible people who don't have the time to look this type of stuff up to see whether or not he's lying or not. He's got a nice MD next to his name, and that MD for a lot of people means trust. Means you can trust what he says, when what he just said contradicts everything that he's trying to sell you. This is magnificent.
Is there still some assertion that human beings don't have to worry about this, or has anybody woken up to this particular issue?
Certainly there are subsets of scientists that are super concerned, are really screaming, this is the end of human biology if we don't stop this pathway.
The end of human biology. It's the end of human biology if we keep using glyphosate. Of course it is. Of course it is. Because it's disrupting our ability to eat all these amino acids from these plants that are dead. But all these plants that glyphosate didn't kill, that we still has it and we can still eat it. We just don't talk about that. It's the end of human biology. The end.
Mm-hmm. I think by and large the consumer has been so confused and blinded by this constant marketing, constant messaging that genetically modified crops are a necessary thing to feed the world. Right.
Mm-hmm.
We have 7 billion
this is
people.
Good.
We have to feed them. We would have starvation if we didn't have GMO crops.
And I've heard that before. And so what is your take on that? Is there validity to the assertion that without GMO crops, we're going to have worldwide starvation?
Do you guys want to guess what his answer is?
My take is no, not even close. If we took GMO off the market today, we would still be feeding the world with the same inefficacy that we are today. We have starvation. We have the biggest famine in human history happening over in sub-Saharan Africa right now. There is zero news coverage.
Right.
How many people in sub-Saharan Africa right now are eating GMO food? Just curious. It's this kind of arrogant-ass statement that really, really just grinds my gears. Because this guy is basically trying to shit on the ability for genetically modified food to feed the world. Well, I hate to have to break it to you, but we do have an excess of food now because of GMOs. And also because of conventional farming, because of the Green Revolution, pretty much everything that you don't like. That's why we are able to feed as many people as we are. The reason, yet again, which is he's not wrong in this when he makes this assertion, the reason why we don't feed all the starving people of the world is mostly politics and infrastructure. We don't have an ability to basically ship a lot of food to places that really need it before it goes bad, or we don't have the money to do it, or we're just not that charitable of people, which is unfortunate. However, there are efforts like golden rice, which is a genetically engineered rice to increase the amount of beta carotene to solve the whole problem of, 500,000 children who die because of vitamin A deficiency, and another 500,000 children who go blind, and this is yearly because they don't have proper nutrition. Well, vitamin A enriched rice, the golden rice, is a GMO answer to that, which has been in production for decades and shows a real chance of saving human life. He's not going to bring that up because that would hurt his argument. And then he can't tell you what to eat and which supplements you need to buy. Okay, so the last little bit on this interview that I want to talk about, he's making this argument that not eating local and not eating seasonal is somehow bad, and that the processes by which we use to change our food is inherently somehow a bad thing, and that there are real consequences for it. Just listen to this, and then you'll understand in just a minute why I saved this for last.
So you have to pick it prematurely, and then it's ripened under ethylene gas that's in the transport cases. They're feeding ethylene gas into it on the way to ripen the fruit artificially, so that by the time it gets to New York and on your shelf, it's ripe, but it's not rotting. So if we take fruit that's been picked prematurely and then artificially ripened, or in the case of wheat, we kill it prematurely and we don't let the ripening process happen naturally, we obviously are going to lose nutrient quality to the food.
Prove it. Prove it. I'd love to see some proof.
Nature so designed every berry, every piece of fruit, every vegetable to be at its perfect moment when it's at its full potential.
Nature designed. That's a pretty spooky thing to hear from a medical doctor. But no, continue. We're almost there. We're almost to the right part of your argument.
And that full potential is nutrient-wise, it's size-wise, everything is perfect. And so if we shortcut that and say we're going to not let the wheat come, what's going to happen? We're going to change the carbohydrate to fiber ratios in that gluten. The gluten ratios to its fiber ratios are going to change. And so we suddenly started creating wheat that was abnormal for the body to handle. Simultaneously to this, then, we unknowingly as consumers and farmers perhaps, but what we were doing is adding glyphosate, which would become a chemical that actually has a very synergistic effect with gluten. And so we actually created gluten sensitivity out of this one effect. Gluten sensitivity is a reality of biology. Our biology...
Okay. Here's going to be our last little breakdown for this video. You're going to dig this. You see, back in 2013, there was a publication that was put out by a dynamic duo that were basically making the claim that glyphosate residue was responsible for the increase in celiac disease and gluten sensitivity. Now, the real gem of this is that this was written by Samsel and Seneff. So Anthony Samsel, he's a retired science consultant, well known in the anti-GMO, anti-vax circles. Stephanie Seneff was a computer programmer who rather famously said that by 2050, 50% of all children in the world are going to be autistic, and this is all because of vaccines, and also blames GMO products for things like Parkinson's. And also, they co-authored this whole publication saying that gluten sensitivity is it's all glyphosate. Well, the issue is, if you know anything about the cult of anti-GMOers, then you know that there's certain tiers of quackery going on. One of those is the Seralini group. The Seralini group is, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's like Giles de Seralini. He was a guy that was really famous for saying that Roundup was causing cancer. And he had this horribly vicious, nasty research that he did with rats, where he let these rats that already were predicated for tumors get these massive tumors, didn't euthanize them, let them suffer, and he claimed, well, it's Roundup. Well, he's another disgraced doctor who's found to have fudged his results, an unethical study. But two of his co-authors from that study, they went on to a predatory pay-for-play science journal and published a letter basically saying that Stephanie Seneff and Anthony Samsel are lunatics, and that they don't like that they publish this because it makes their anti-GMO movement look crazy. You have some of the biggest offenders publishing the most disgraced, debunked, garbage science on GMOs in the world. And they're pointing at what Zach Bush is saying is evidence and saying, this is dog shit because this makes us sound like lunatics. Wow. This would kind of be like a dude standing on the street corner screaming about how Lord Zvanut is going to be coming back to reclaim all the alien souls, a la Scientology. And then his former friend who's out there screaming about how, actually, no, it's not Lord Zvanut, it's the Illuminati death cult are trying to resummon Cthulhu from the great deeps. And he's like, hey, dude, actually, you need to shut up because you're making me sound like an idiot. You're making me sound like a crazy person. So can you tone it down? Can you please? And then this brilliant man here is the guy being like, actually, yeah, no, I think it's the dread Cthulhu coming back from the deep because the Illuminati is trying to raise it. Yeah. That's what this means. That's how this whole translates to. This dude and Patrick Gentempo and Tony Bark and the whole Jeff Hayes documentary crew are vomiting forth evidence so crazy, the most disgraced people in anti-GMO science communication think they're fucking idiots. My God, I love everything about this crazy, weird, wacky cult. Y'all are just so charming. Anyway, by and large, that's the end of the interview. He goes through this long, drawn-out, incredibly inaccurate, boring history lesson on how we went from proper organic farming and growing into this horrible biological nightmare of disease and GMOs, and it's just the same regurgitated bullshit. But I found it so fascinating because it's rare that you get to see somebody kick their own ass so thoroughly, but you just have to understand the history and the basis behind it. You have to understand the infrastructure. And also, for some reason, a lot of people haven't really been talking about Mr. Zach Bush there. And I was kind of confused about that. So maybe I'm going to add into the story a little bit. That way, people are like, the Zach Bush guy, he's a doctor. Sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Maybe when they Google him, maybe they can see this. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. At some point, we'll get back into looking into Patrick Gentempo and Jeff Hayes' little efforts. I'm not going to put as much effort into debunking them as I am into things like Vaxxed. Vaxxed is a much larger and serious issue and much more widespread than their weird, regurgitated interviews. Like, seriously, when I was looking at this GMO exposed documentary thing, half of the interviews, they actually ripped out of Bought the Movie. Like, this is some lazy shit. And it's pretty hilarious. But that's going to be it. Hope you are having a great time. Hope you and your family are well. From mine to yours. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.